Hello, everybody, and welcome to another day of live Learn from the Pros. If you don't know who I am and you're watching this for the first time, I am Reds, otherwise known as Jason Reynolds. Well, that's my legal government name, and I am the person who runs this program. So thank you for joining. Thank you for logging on to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, do me a favor and click the subscribe button. Share this with people you know. If you know anybody who is working in the music industry or would like to get into the music industry, we have created this as a way for y'all to connect with some of the professionals in the industry, top professionals, and be able to learn and get better in this time of physical and social distancing. So please do that. If you're new here, check out my website, jasonreynoldsproaudio.com. That way you can opt in with your email and be able to get emails from me and know what's happening on a weekly basis because that's very important as well. And also check out my Patreon site. All of this is in the description, by the way. Check out my Patreon site, patreon.com/slash Jason Reynolds Pro Audio for training. Yesterday was no, day before yesterday. Tuesday was masterclass day. We do bi-weekly masterclasses, and they have been phenomenal. We did Digico Advanced training this week, and don't just take it from me. If you're watching and you're a part of our masterclass training, why don't you drop it in the comments? Let people know how the masterclasses have been going and how much value you're finding, if any. I mean, be honest. If you're not finding value, say that too. That's cool. But yeah, we're going to continue doing those for the foreseeable future. We're very excited about that. And so, you know, there's a few people that are behind this broadcast and have given me the gear to be able to do what I do, and one of those people are is my guest today on the program, Mr. Stephen Vian. Let's get him in here. There he is. Steve, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Jason. Yourself?
I'm doing very good. I'm hanging out in my house. I think my kids are now ready for me to be gone. They're probably like, when I was touring a lot or traveling a lot, I'd get home and they'd be like, "When's Daddy coming home?" Now they're like, "When's Daddy leaving?" I get that look from them every morning,
I'm
like
glad you're leaving.
he's still here.
I completely understand. I have adult children now, so different circumstances.
Right, right.
It feels awkward in the forefront of something, spending most of my life behind the scenes. I'm not used to being centered into a screen. So
Yeah,
I'm going
all
to let
good.
you lead, Jason, become a pro at it.
Well, we've all had to learn these different skills, right? And that's kind of the name of the game in this time is learning new skills and being pivoting, if you will, has been a term I've been using a lot lately because we've all had to figure out how to pivot and how to become flexible and stay afloat, stay relevant. So today, a lot of this conversation today, I think, is what a lot of people will be able to glean from is how to stay flexible and relevant in changing times. So I'm very excited for people to be able to learn from you. So why don't we start? Why don't you tell me how you got into the industry not so long ago?
Not so long ago. Well, I think it started probably the first concert I ever went to see. I think I was in grade 7, and my sister took me to see the Jackson's Victory Tour,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
it was at what you see. And I remember getting off the bus and walking into the stadium and seeing the production and just being mesmerized by it. It was actually horrifying, to be honest with you. But it was such an experience that I said to myself, "This is what I love, and I want to get into the music business." So from a very young age, I think I fell in love with live music, and as you know today, that's still what we're doing. So it kind of went from there. Started doing audio for bands when I was 17. So we're going back 35 years and saw the evolution of a lot of equipment over the years. And then mixed a band that came in from the United States that decided to reside in Ontario. And I got called up to start them and started doing bar tours in Southern Ontario. This was at age 19, and then went off to college, took a business program there, finished that, started working for a production company at 21, lasted a year, bought their inventory out. And ever since then, I've been kind of doing the same thing. I mean, it's evolved a lot over the years, but like my primary was the audio portion. We do the video and we do the lighting, and we do it well. But my heart is, I think, where yours is as well. It's we are diehard audio people from the beginning, and will probably continue to be as time goes on. So that is a brief history. So I was started off as an audio engineer as yourself, mixing various Canadian recording artists, and then meeting some other production managers over the years at some of the venues that I worked at, and had the opportunity to work with some really great Canadian bands and some great touring acts from the U.S. and from Europe. So that's kind of where it started, and where my heart really is still today. So I'm one of those diehards who holds out for us to get back to concerts. So you're doing a great job at this, Jason, and I couldn't think of a better person to be doing what you are doing. A, with your personality, and B, with your skill set. So I'm glad we've discussed this for a year now, but
Mm-hmm.
necessity kind of came to play. Now, it's come to fruition. You're actually doing it, and you're surrounded by the toys, and you've got quite the following, and you're really good at it. So I wish you continued success with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a brief history
So if we could
of where
dive,
where I.
yeah, if we could dive in a little bit to that, this thought that necessity sort of creates opportunity, and necessity is in a lot of times, in a lot of ways, the best teacher, right? Because a lot of times we learn things out of necessity that we wouldn't necessarily always either have the time to, or the desire to go and learn. Like before now, I had no desire to learn broadcasting, right? So you asked me about Wirecast 4 months from before now, I would be like, whatever, not really interested. So has that played a part somewhat you talking about running a production company or different production companies, but being a production company owner spanning over 30 plus years, there has had to have been some of that learning things out of necessity, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think I learned very early in the production business that only providing audio in Canada is a very difficult path to commit to. Um, a lot of people would prefer to have one-stop shop where they can get their audio, their lighting, their video, and their staging, which poses problems. And at first, because as you said, necessity is the mother or father of all invention. We've had to learn how to become dynamic and learn multiple other disciplines to A, exist, and B, capture clients and retain them. So that was one of the things. So I very early on had to start learning about video. And when you apply your background in audio to video, and signal path and signal flow, the transition wasn't as daunting as I thought it was going to be. Uh, but yeah, that was something. And lighting. I mean, you had to become well versed with lighting, understanding fixtures, and not necessarily being the person to operate them, but being able to specify what is required to do a job, or being able to walk into a venue or a theater or a room, and be able to let the client know what is required for them to put on their productions. When I first started, it was all microphones, consoles, and speakers. And if you ever mentioned anything other than that, as you said earlier with Wirecast, I would have said I'm not interested. But the necessity to survive and to keep clients, because I was watching other companies around us, do all of the above. So we didn't want to be left behind or not evolving as well. So That was definitely something that we had to transition to, and now, as you said, we're providing sound, lighting, video staging, all of the above.
Right. And of course
In
in
a
an
perfect world scenario, only be providing audio, but we
right.
don't go on.
No, I was saying, and of course, for those watching, I mean, everybody knows we're at the mercy of internet service providers, so we may have a little bit of latency and some garbling every now and then, but we're getting through, and it's I think here's the question I wanted to ask you because a lot of what I try to highlight in this program is not necessarily technical skills, but for people to have the opportunity to learn some intangibles that go a really really long way in guaranteeing success, if you will. And of course, success is never a guarantee, but giving you the best shot of success as possible. And something that kind of jumped out at me as you were speaking was this concept of beginning with the end in mind. So a lot of people, a lot of guests who have come on the program have talked about that concept of, when you sit down to create a mix, let's say as an audio guy, you're creating that mix with the end in mind. You know what you want it to sound like. You know kind of where you're going. If you yourself, you're a avid cook, you cook very well, so you kind of got to know what you're making before you start choosing ingredients, right? Like if you're gonna, because the meal that you're preparing is gonna determine the ingredients. So in those beginning years, like, did you know you always wanted to be a production company owner? You always wanted to own and operate a powerhouse production company? Was that always the goal, or like me, did you want to go tour and travel and do that stuff?
Okay, well, okay, that question has two sides to it, definitely. So yes, I did want to be the touring technician, audio engineer. I made that choice to stop very early. I think I was 27 years old, just about to get married, and I got called by a Canadian touring act to go on the road. And I had just begun working with this band, and they landed an international contract, and I turned it down. So I had to make that decision very, very early in my career, um, and and decide not to continue the path of going on the road. So I owned the production company at the time, but it was very small with a very tiny inventory. But we were doing a lot of local shows. Um, I liked the interaction with people, and I guess owning a company gave me that. I had the ability to reach out and have customers and bring concepts to the table and execute them and do them as successfully as we possibly could. So I think I didn't necessarily have an end game, but I knew that I wanted to own a production company. So I always kept reiterating the same words in my head: is that you are going to create a great product. Keep doing it, and overcome whatever hurdles may arise. But the vision was to have a great product in the end and surround myself with great people. So I think the key to the company's success and my career personally is trying to always surround yourself with great people. People who are like-minded and courteous and respectful of others and have technical knowledge. So nothing is more rewarding than putting on a great production with professionals around you that are like-minded and have the same goal. So I may not have had a financial end game and plan or a size thing, but I, I knew I wanted to work at the level where I was with top-notch professionals. So I think if we go back, rewind 3 or 4 years ago, I think I met you in Barbados, coincidentally on a show. I think you were with Shaggy, and I was with the production company. We were flown out from Toronto to Barbados, and to me, I started realizing that was the pinnacle of my career, is being able to do shows with great recording artists and with great crew. So I don't think there can be anything more rewarding than pulling off a fantastic show. I mean, being in Barbados is fantastic on its own, but when you're
Right.
working with that kind, there's just an on that show. You know everybody's there. Everybody's at the top of their game, even though you might have some newcomers to the business at that point, but they're being surrounded by people who do have an end game for that day, which is successful, great
Right.
shows and great experiences for people who come and see the shows.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that kind of sums up my do I see an end game? It is always it's definitely that's an overused phrase, but it's a people business. We're with individuals, all whether you're interacting with the band management, or the other technicians. Uh, my biggest thing is always be courteous to the people. Because I find it easy to do, um, and B, if you're at the beginning of your career, you want to make sure that you've left an impression with the people that you've worked with that day. That is a positive one. That you've left an impact of something positive that they can take home too. So that's why I always try to interact with people around me. I'll speak to the lighting technician, the video technician, ask them how their day's going, what they're doing, what piece of equipment they're working on, and you can tell really quickly if they have the time for you, and if not, you just move away. But it's definitely what keeps me back doing this for decade number 4 is people, and so that's why I guess when people ask me how are you dealing with this COVID, um, and being kind of stuck in your home, it hasn't been the most comfortable thing because I'm being taken away from what I love to do. It's not even the revenue portion of the business. I mean, that's important, and we'd love to see that come back. But I miss the interaction with people. I miss the energy, and I'm sure you share the same sentiment. I've seen some of your videos on some of the tours, especially the last one when you were in the UK, and what you've captured, like seeing people's reactions to shows, and that kind of buzz that exists in the air and the energy at a live concert. You cannot replace it, in my opinion. So I'm hoping we come back at some point to some return of what's into this business.
Right. And I think what's interesting, so yeah, we met initially 4 years ago, kind of never we were never really in touch. And then last year Shaggy was playing at the Fallsview Casino where PSI is the main audio vendor. Well, it's more than that now, but at the time was just sort of just audio. And so we had some interaction, and then we sat down afterwards, and we were talking, and I want to dive into this a little bit more because I've obviously traveling around the world, and I've been to every corner of the globe now and met production company owners, met production managers, met gear owners, you name it, right? It's funny that most of the people I've met who own production companies, the first thing they always talk to you about as a touring guy is the gear that they own, right? Like that's what they talk to you about. Oh yeah, man, I got SSL consoles, I got digital consoles, I got a K1 rig, I got this and that and that and that and that and that. And that. And they go on and they puke gear all over you for like half an hour, right? Um, but what drew me to you was the fact that you didn't talk to me about any of the gear that you own. Like I walked away from that conversation knowing nothing about PSI other than the people that work for the company. And I found it strange. First of all, because I never, I didn't, I'm not used to meeting production company owners that talk like that because they want you, like, and it's understandable why. Like, whether or not it's production company owners or account reps or salespeople, they want you to know that they have the best gear. So if you bring your business to them, then you're gonna have the best gear to work with. When I've seen I've walked onto shows where it's been like an old EAW KF760 rig, but great people, and I've had a fantastic time. I mean, even when you go back to that, you talked about that Barbados show, and I'll tell this story, and then we'll talk a little bit more about your focus on people. When in that on that Barbados show, um, it could have turned out horribly. Like my Waves license key crashed on, and I had a profile, and I remember just being very upset. Like I was like, and funny enough, the show started horribly because the license key just crashed like right before show. And DNCE's front of house guy noticed what was going on, and he ran up on stage, didn't even ask me, just plugged in his license key and started refreshing all my plugins while I was trying to run around and get stuff done. And that entire experience, it wasn't the greatest gear because, I mean, yeah, a lot of the consoles and stuff was flown in, but the PA was locally sourced. I remember seeing Phil Hornug in the hallway of the hotel and him telling me how much trouble he was having getting the PA just to be in phase because like it was crazy. But just being around great people, and I think so many people don't understand the value of people. So talk to me a bit more about that focus for you as you continue to run a great company and focusing on not so much the gear, but and yes, it's important. The guys, don't get me wrong. Don't nobody walk away from this and saying Jason Reynolds will tour the EAW KF760 rig. That's not the point of this conversation. It's still great to have good gear, but more importantly, it's important to have good people. So talk to me a little bit about that focus and why that keeps you so relevant in the marketplace.
Well, thank you for the compliments. Very, very kind words. It everything about emotion that you take away. So some of the best meals you've ever had in your life, there's usually a story or an emotion tied to it. Or you went to see a band perform, or relationships, whatever it may be with your children. It's all about an emotion that was created, and those are what leads to long time impressions and memories in your head. So my thing is that yes, let's never forget that good quality equipment is very important, and it's kind of the benchmark of our relationship as well, as far as the equipment goes. But what drew us to each other is the common. Let me just mute my phone here. The common, I think, appreciation and respect we have for others. So, getting back to that thing that you said about Barbados and having Phil Horner talk about the PA system and and fixing it, and it may have been, or the front of house engineer from DNC saving the day with his USB key with his waste. Um, that was because you were under a lot of stress and somebody helped you out and relieved it. So if we can leave an emotion with somebody where it's positive and we've made a change in their lives for that day, even if it's for a split second, even if it's a passing glance. And sometimes maybe I see the world with rose-colored glasses, or I'd like to. I just would like to be surrounded with people that have chosen their career. And I think in our business, I'm hoping that nobody was forced or coerced into working. So I don't really understand how somebody can come to it. Well, you can have a bad day. Sure, you're in a tour bus for a month, or you had a bad flight, or you have. But I think at the end of the day, we all have the same goal, is to put on great productions. And I've always said to myself and to others is never focus on money, because if money is your sole motivating factor, you're going to fail. So if you can focus on being the best you that you can be, and again, these all sound like very cliche things to say, but it's the truth. Like you would do in any relationship as a parent. When you go do a show up, give it your all, and it may be a terrible PA system, but you may talk to an up and coming technician, and you may just make that person's day, or inspire them to get into our industry, because it can be such a rewarding business. Um, People are making great careers out of it. We'll have to speak in the pre and post COVID type of discussions, because I
Right.
don't think we'll be in forever. But yeah, I try to govern myself how I would speak to my children, or how I would want to be spoken to by anybody in a relationship. I mean, I was raised to be courteous and respectful to people around you. Creed, all of the above. So I get why we can't take that to work. So to me, it's always been like, bring your Pelican case in, but leave your luggage at the door. But if you had a bad day, check that in before you arrive at the venue, because you just want to get through it. Here's the thing: is we've all needed somebody else on a show. We've all needed to either bail somebody out or be bailed out by somebody else. So, people remember that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that that you have that courtesy and respect. And yeah, our first conversation, I remember we went out after the Shaggy show at Fallsview Casino, and we sat down and we just talked about life and shows and events and typical post gig stuff, but none of it. And it wasn't with an ulterior motive in mind. It was more, let's just talk, let's get to know each other. And then I remember when we left that day, some of my other colleagues said, "So how are we going to, integrate Jason into our fold?" It was like, well, I said it'll happen organically. I mean, things just happen in a way, and let's just instead of trying to push somebody into a position or try and force something. You like to see if there's some synergies in personalities. And I guess I've always been attracted to situations and people that bring a different dynamic to the table. And that's what I find exciting about our industry is you're meeting people of different backgrounds, different disciplines, different upbringings, different countries, all of the above. And that to me is really cool because, I like finding things about people and finding out what their pastimes are and their hobbies. And I'm more attracted to that part of the business than, yes, let's get into talking about, what cards you have in your stage rack. I mean, all very important, but we know that already. Like I think in this position in our careers, we're beyond that. So now we can focus on things, just the people and making our making our experience and what we're doing pleasant. Because there's no reason why. I mean, it's a tough business. It's hard. It's long hours. It's grueling. So let's make the best of it. Let's go out there and let's make some memories and let's create some relationships. Most of my best friends are people I've met in this industry, and I've kept them for years. And I
Right.
can pick up the phone and call any one of them 24 hours a day and say, I remember I was coming home from a show at Casino Rama. It was the Beach Boys, and I got a flat tire in a cube van full of backline. And I called a buddy, and he shut up on 400 and helped me cut the tire off of the cube. So when you've been in the trenches with people, and you've fought the proverbial wars, together, those are with you. And I like to govern myself, and I like to surround myself with people that are like-minded as well. Hopefully,
Very good.
that someone question about that.
Very good. Very good. I know you're working remote today, and we don't have the best internet connection. It's giving us, but we're getting most of what you're saying. So, if anybody has any questions, I want to encourage you definitely to drop it in the comments. But I want to ask you this because this time that we're going through right now is unprecedented. We've never, I know for me, I've never been through anything like this in my lifetime. The uncertainty of it is very daunting. Like you said, we don't know when normalcy returns, and for those of us who make a living based on gatherings, not being able to gather is a problem, right? So, what advice do you have for people going through this time right now, and how do they stay positive? How do they stay relevant? How do they work towards one day being able to get out of this?
Very good questions, because I have to keep telling myself the same things over and over again every day in order to cope with it. Because I'm not immune to the same to anything that doesn't affect other people as well. So I think it's really important right now is to try and keep some semblance of routine that you may have had before this. So if that meant getting up at a certain time of day or going to bed at a certain exercising, diet, or whatever it may be, is to try to maintain that as much as possible. And the time that you aren't spending doing what you were doing before, i.e., your job, doing shows, is to spend time now focusing on bettering yourselves technically and emotionally and spiritually. So there's all kinds of things that we can be doing in this downtime that we can focus on. I have a lot of people telling me, "Well, I've spent more time with my kids than ever," which is a good thing. So take that time, spend time with your family, spend time equipment. If you have access to equipment, I know I've been to wants it because to me it's in the best interest for everyone to be learning in this downtime. So I think all of our digital consoles are completely out of the warehouse right now, which is great because people are doing things with them, and that's what we want. So take this time that you wouldn't have had before and start reading. For the younger technicians getting into audio, I've always said if you can read the Yamaha Sound Reinforcement Handbook from start to end, you'll be a better tech at the end of it. You may put it down a few times, but this is really the time to start learning and honing your skills, learning some new things. Like you said, I mean, you've been learning about video and web streaming and bit rate and things related to. So if you can kind of look at some other avenues, A, occupy your time, B, to learn, C, maybe there'll be things that you can take into your work environment after and make yourself, more of a valued technician that you can offer more things to whatever your prospective clients or employers may be at that time. And it's hard to stay focused because there's so much noise going on in the background between when is it going to go away? When are we going to get better? Is there a cure? Am I going to get sick? Is my family going to get sick? So you really have to try and limit that noise that's going on in the background. And it's happened to me, and I've had this conversation with you, Jason, where you've said to me, Steve, you need to relax and take a deep breath. And I take that. I take information and I take things from everybody I deal with. And that's been valuable at times when you've said, take a deep breath and you're going to get through this day or tomorrow, because it is different, right? And as humans, we don't like how this feels because we're creatures of habits. Mm-hmm. And I find as North America, it's a different culture than it speaks to other countries about being in a situation we're dealing with adversity. For us, we have a sense of routine and normal in North America, although lately that's been going off the rails as well.
Right.
But we really need to focus on people and loving our neighbors and maybe doing something nice for one stranger every day of your life, and it feels good, right? And hopefully that person pays that back to you. If we can all have this dream of a euphoric world where there's love and harmony, I think we'll be better off for it. So how am I going to through COVID? I mean, as a technician, you're not doing shows, so you've lost that. Not only have you lost the revenue, it's that personal sense of satisfaction and accomplishment. Mm-hmm. So if now's the time, if you have any other hobbies related to the industry, if it's recording or mixing, if you have the means to get that equipment, now would be definitely the time to start doing it, because we all know once the world comes back to some semblance of normal, you won't have that time again. So and you don't want to look back and regret it. So take time to learn something new every day. Say something nice to a stranger once a day, even if you have a mask on, and just try and keep your head up. And even if you smile to yourself and you're faking it, it actually feels better. You may release some endorphin and help yourself get through it. Talk to all the other fellow technicians. Call everybody that you know, and talk to them. Ask them how they're doing, because it does matter. It really does. Definitely. Even a simple text message saying, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." And even if once a day you send one text message to somebody else saying, "Hey, how's it going? How's life? How's everything?" You need someone to talk to. Because we're all in it together. It's not like you've done something wrong or whatever you're doing. Nobody's at fault. It's global at this point. So don't beat yourself up over it. You kind of got to just take that deep breath, as Jason says, a sigh, and look towards better days, because they're going to happen. They're going to come, but it may be a while. But we have to recognize that it's not good right now, but it will get better. So don't turn a blind eye to it. It's real. Accept it, acknowledge it, move on to the next day, and stay focused.
For sure. And that's good advice, man. I do want to dig into some questions, some technical questions regarding like running a production company, etc. But I do want to make sure that we do that in a setting where everybody's gonna get everything you're saying, and we are having some internet challenges, so we're gonna have to schedule a part two. Maybe we'll do it in person, physically distanced at the shop, and make it happen. But I'm gonna thank you obviously for joining me, for taking some time out today. I think the conversation was incredible, and I think we'll definitely look towards a part two for sure very soon.
That we could get into some tech because there is that side of me as well. So
Right, right.
it's not just all about good feel. There's a lot of equipment and technology behind it.
Cool, man.
Thanks for having me on, Jason. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And for those of you who are wondering, for those watching, you wondering where you can find us, if you follow us on Instagram at psi.show, you're gonna be able to find us there. Also the website obviously is www.psi.show. Shout out to the rest of the PSI team who may or may not be watching. I know I saw Jeremy in the comments earlier. So yeah, definitely hit us up. Stay in touch. And just a special note for my viewers: we don't have a Learn from the Pros tomorrow. Our guest was supposed to be Martin Lewis, but he had something important come up, so we're unable to do it tomorrow. We're gonna reschedule Martin. But if you haven't done so, JasonReynoldsProAudio.com is where you will find my website. You can opt in, and I'll send out an email on Sunday or Monday morning with the schedule for next week. We not got another great lineup. Some people who are coming back next week, so it's going to be fun. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate your support, and we'll see you soon. Take care.